I've opened up my copy of Microsoft Excel and I've loaded this heart.xlsx. So that file format obviously is the default format for Microsoft Excel. And the file is open here. We see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we see a total of 12 columns. And I'm just going to go all the way down to the bottom. And we see a total of 919 rows of data. And this is called tabular data, of course. The way that Excel does it is it gives every little cell an address. In computer languages, we might call that an index. And in mathematics and computer languages, we'll always have the row value first and then the column value. But Microsoft Excel and other spreadsheet software have that the other way around. So here we are in column D and we are in row number 4. So this cell containing the value of 130 that I've highlighted here would be cell D4. The cell right up there would be A1, so it's always column first and then the row. So it's just something to watch out for, what the address of each cell is or what the index of each cell is. It's always the comma, the column first and then the row. So this one that I've highlighted here would be B4. Now this data, very importantly, is in tidy data. That's T-I-D-Y, tidy data format, and specifically long format tidy data. And that is the kind of data that we very much like to work with when it comes to all the normal statistical tests that we want to do in biostatistics. So let's have a look at long format tidy data just to get started. So what you'll see is that there is a column of data, and in that very first row, this column of data is called age. And very loosely, we're going to refer to that as the variable age. And down this column, we will only have information about this variable called age. The data will be captured in a very specific level of measurement. And in this instance, it is ratio type data. In other words, it's numbers with a true zero. So if there was a 0 in here and the data was collected correctly, that means it's someone who's 0 years old, and that would obviously be at birth. So there's a true 0. These are numbers. And I can do calculations on those numbers. So all the values that if I walked up to someone and I would gather information about their age, so if I just walked up to someone at random, that value that would come out would be a random value. And if I think about everyone on earth, if I walked up to everyone, there is a minimum value and there's a maximum value. And every possible thing in between, that will be the sample space, all the possible values that every cell in that column could take. So in this case, clearly it's going to be integers, whole numbers, well in our instance, of course, natural numbers, because no one can be negative 10 years old. So all these positive integer values. When we look at the next column there, it says 6 in the first row. So we've dedicated this first row just to the names that we've given each of our variables. And in spreadsheet talk, we'll call that the column headers. And the for us goes into row 1. Note that there's nothing above row 1 specifically of importance. If I want to import this into Python or R, we don't want those kind of extraneous columns or rows where the first 2 rows are just this highlighted, merged, lot of cells with some bold title on top of it. We don't want anything like that at all when it comes to tidy data. So column number 2, that's column B. And that'd be 6, and we see it's only binary 6 that has been captured for this data set. So only the 2 values, so the sample space would only be M and F. That's the only 2 possible values that can go into this column, and that's defined beforehand. So a very simplified look at 6 there's in as much as it's completely binary. Column C, chest pain type, and you see there's ATA, NAP, ATA, ASY, NAP, NAP, ATA. So there's certainly some sample space there as well, and that's the only values that can go into that column. So very much we have very defined sample space from which we can select for each value in that column. And then when it comes to the rows, obviously, as I said, row number 1, that's just going to be the column headers or the names that we give to each of these variables in the column. And then every row pertains to a specific subject. Now, in this instance, the subjects are human beings, but they might be data that you collect from all the healthcare facilities in a specific area. So whatever that subject is, every row contains data specifically only for that subject. So we won't find data for this specific subject on any other row. So every observation, so each one of these we'll call an observation for that specific variable for this specific individual, the subject that is on row number 3. And that is tidy data. If your data is in this format, it is called long format tidy data. Now look right here at the end, I have heart disease and I only have zeros and ones, and that's called encoding. And so instead of saying no heart disease, presence of heart disease, no heart disease, presence of heart disease, I've just encoded them with zeros and ones. So certainly that is absolutely allowed. It makes it slightly more difficult because you can't just put a result of 0 on the screen. You have to describe what that is, specifically if you write a report for someone else to read. But when we analyze data, it's quite okay to encode what you mean by the sample space element. So clearly 0 would be there's no heart disease, and 1 would be there is the presence of heart disease. So just watch out for that. Now those, of course, that's a binary variable, and it is nominal categorical. And so instead of us, thinking of these as numbers, they really are not. They are indeed a binary categorical variable. So just watch out for this. Tidy data. The last thing to watch out for is the fact that if I were to go down this column, this one called exercise angina. So do they get chest pain on exercise? You see no and yes. So the sample space elements are only uppercase N, uppercase Y. So we don't want uppercase Y, lowercase y, or YES with an uppercase Y and YES with a lowercase. We don't want mixes like that. Be very specific about the sample space that you can take from for each subject. So in this instance, our sample space is only uppercase Y, uppercase N, nothing else. No lowercase n's, no writing out no NO or YES as I mentioned. So something to be very particular about when it comes to long format tidy data. So now that we are pretty sure our data is here in tidy format, we understand what long format tidy data is, the first thing that we are going to do is to select all our data. Now, a good way to do that is just go to the first cell there, that's be A1, and I'm just going to hold down, this is a Mac, so I'm going to hold down Command, and while I'm holding down the Command key, I'm going to hit the A key. On a Windows system or Linux system, that'll be Control A, and that selects all the data. And it jumped all the way down to row 919 there, and everything seems to be highlighted. Now I want to copy this, and I can either click on the copy button at the top left, as you can see, but I'm just going to hold down Command and hit C. Windows, Linux, you're going to hold down Control and hit C, and I've copied everything. How do I know it's copied? We see the marching ants, as we like to call them, go around our data. So it's copied now, and what I want to do is create a brand new cell. So right at the bottom here, next to this first sheet, I should say, that is called heart, I'm going to click the little plus button. That's going to open a new sheet for me. And maybe I'll double click on the sheet just to give it a new name, and I'm going to say data copy. Because I never want to work with that raw data. I want that to remain untouched. So in case I make some mistake somewhere along the line, delete some of the data that I don't want to delete, I always have access to the original copy. So what we're going to go do is just go to this cell right up top, A1. And here where it says under the Home tab, where it says Paste, I'm just going to click that little drop down, and I'm going to say Paste Special. And I just want the text to be copied. So let's click OK. And there we go. I've made a copy of all of that data. And now it's on this copy that I'll start doing my work.